Though the mechanism for injecting fuel into the economy has broken down. And when that happens, we all suffer.
I think it's a mistake for people to think these events don't apply to them. That they don't own any subprime mortgages or collateralised debt obligations or even equities, so what does it matter to them? It affects us all. And the credit creation process is at the heart of everything in our economy. And without that, you cannot get normal functioning. And I think the damage that's been done to that is large and it's persistent. So when you talk about the average home owner and worker in its impact on them, they probably will find that their mortgage costs more, whatever the absolute level of interest rates. If they're unlucky, they may find that their job's affected by this as well. I think there are some very severe real-world effects on people's ability to borrow.
Our banks have less money to lend to us, and they're charging more for what they will lend. That's leading to falls in house and property prices, which makes us feel poorer. And it risks creating a vicious downward spiral as we spend less and the economy slows down.
Just to translate that into what it means for ordinary people, if people are borrowing less, saving more, that'll translate into slow growth. Does it translate into a serious recession in your view?
I don't expect a worldwide recession. I do expect a recession in the United States, the severity of which cannot be predicted.
As a result of recent budget changes, the British tax system may no longer be quite so favourable to the new super-rich as it was. But what about the widening income and wealth gap between the super-rich and the rest of us?
It's more the way that wealth's accumulated. If wealth's accumulated out of people growing companies successfully, that's it's generally good. It's hard to come up with a real negative on that. If, on the other hand, it's some guy who's made all of his money out of making 2 or 3 huge financial bets, then the social implications are much wider, because those bets will go wrong as well as right, and when they go wrong, there will be a lot of victims other than the guy. So there's a social and political issue there. So the guy who's made $100 million out of being the promoter of over-leveraged structures, that's a political issue. He's caused a lot of damage and he's got very rich.
I think an economy which is characterised by extremes of wealth is not a secure and safe economy, any more than one economy versus another economy. Extremes of wealth and income give rise, I think, to very serious moral risks.
That might not matter if we could be confident that lessons are being learned from the crisis. But what we see is that America's central bank, the Federal Reserve, is once again slashing interest rates and pumping cash into the system. Now, didn't that start the whole poisonous process?
You have a boom-bust process similar to many that we have had in the last decades. But it's also the end of a super boom that has lasted since the end of the Second World War. From time to time, the markets don't correct themselves, you have a crisis. And then the authorities have to intervene and inject liquidity and bail out the failing institutions. And that creates a system of asymmetric incentives where you are encouraged to leverage, but if things really go wrong, there is relief.
If those in charge of the system can't be relied upon to change their ways, what chance that those who play the greed game might actually mend theirs? They've been incentivised to take dangerous risks with other people's money in the hunt for big profits and vast rewards. Have those incentives been eliminated?
No, not really. I think that if you set up a basic remuneration structure where people get paid 20% of the gains from playing with other people's money, I'm not quite sure what possible event could occur to make them learn anything from it. You really just need to change the structure. That's the only thing that will get their attention.
And who's going to change that structure?
There's only really one group of people who ever can change any structure like that, and I think that's the owners. This is a matter of so long as people are willing to be shareholders in banks, where traders are allowed to play with the bank's capital and walk off with 20 or 30% of the gains on it and none of the losses, and where people are willing to invest in private equity and hedge funds and allow the same thing to occur, it will occur.
If you're a hedge fund or a private equity firm, there are fantastic opportunities to profit from the turmoil. A number of hedge funds have already made billions from betting that all those subprime investments were overvalued. And some have done very nicely from speculating that the share prices of our leading banks would tumble. As for private equity, well, a recession would be just the most glorious time to buy businesses at knockdown prices.
Is this actually a period of tremendous opportunity for a firm like this?
Yes, it's going to be a great opportunity. The real golden age comes when you have a mess. You have economies that are on their back, capital inadequate, and when you start buying businesses at that part in the cycle, you inevitably do extremely well unless you're too early. Right now it's a little bit too early, but as you wait and this develops, it'll be a great time to be buying businesses.
So there are still plenty of opportunities for the new super-rich to increase their fortunes, even though the global financial system is in intensive care and our prosperity is threatened. With the greed game still being played, if we're not going to end up the losers again, the rules will need to be rewritten.
It's new, it's live, it starts in a few seconds. Estelle and James Taylor on Later with Jules next on 2. And over on BBC 4, The Hard Sell reveals how advertisers persuade us to buy new technology.